With every breath a new song, with every day a new praise. 'Cause you're a good God, you're a good God. I will taste of your goodness, and I will dance in your mercy. 'Cause you're a good God. Your praise is always on my lips. Your praise is always on my lips. Your praise is always on my lips. How can I keep it in? Wherever I go, you're with me. Every step filled with blessings. 'Cause you're a good God. You're a good God. Every hour in your love, still I can't get enough of you. 'Cause you're a good God. Your praise is always on my lips. Oh, your praise is always on my lips. Your praise is always on my lips. How can I keep it in? How can I keep it in? Whoa, how can I keep it in? Sing. Generous love, I could never find the end. I could never find the end. I'm overcome, oh how you love me. Generous love, I could never find the end. I could never find the end. I'm overcome, oh how you love me. Generous love, I could never find the end. I could never find the end. I'm overcome, oh how you love me. Generous love, I could never find the end. I could never find the end. I'm overcome, oh how you love me. With every breath a new song, with every day a new praise. You're a good God. 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 Oh, you're a good God. You're a good God. You're a good God. Oh, generous love, I could never find the end. I could never find the end. I could never find the end. Generous love, I could never find the end. I could never find the end. I could never find the end. Oh.
Hey, the Evolution fam, welcome home. Wherever you're tuning in from, I want you to know that we are so glad that you're joining us. I'm Regina, one of the senior leaders, and I lead the Young Adults and Tertiary Connect groups. We are living in extraordinary times, so I get that it can be tough navigating life. But I want you to know that you are not alone in your journey. There's so much goodness in you that the world needs, so keep on pressing on. That said, nothing beats hanging out with friends, so be sure to join us for gatherings in real life. We meet on Sundays, 2 to 4 p.m. at church. Also, follow us on Instagram at The Evolution Fam and The Evolution Youth to stay connected with us. DM us if you need some help getting to church or you have something you'd like us to pray for. We can't wait to connect with you too. And now, before we get into another great message, a moment to give our tithes and offerings. This is our act of worship, also our act of love towards our community. As you give, know that you're sowing into the future of TiVo, the dreams of our youth and our hope of creating better humanity. So if you've been blessed by our messages, I want to encourage you to give out of a heart of gratitude. Scan the QR code to give through PayNow or head over to theevolution.org/give for other giving options. Your giving propels us to continue doing the good we've been doing. We are going to impact more lives together. Now ready your heart because we have an awesome message. Jesus in the Bible always comes alive in our church. Sit tight and enjoy this message.
So hi everyone. So how are you doing? Really? Okay. I'm not doing great, okay? You know why? Because the weather these few weeks has been really, really bad. And you know, this is coming from someone right, who kind of thrives under the sun, okay? But even as a sun bearer, right, there's a limit to how much light and heat that we can take in. You know, my heart goes out to all of you right, who function in cooler temperatures, especially Aishu here, right? So, you know, for me, right, to help elevate this like blistering heat, I've decided to let my mind escape to another climate. Okay, I went to Google. So I did a little research about what is it like for people who live in extremely cold weather. So, you know, I'll let you enjoy this picture a little bit more. You know, feel the coolness if you can imagine it. Well, I was randomly just scrolling, right? I was like, wow, cool, wow, I wish I can wear like winter clothes like them, right? And I learned something new actually about Eskimos. So people who live in the polar region on the Earth. So do you know, right, that Eskimos, in their native language, they have actually about 50 odd ways to describe snow. So I mean, for a normal human being, right, who lives outside of their culture, snow means snow lah, right? It's like ice, like ice kacang, right? We wouldn't pay much attention to how we describe snow. But they have words to describe snow like snowflakes, or frost, or fine snow, snow on the ground, soft deep snow, fresh snow, blizzard, snowbank, and many, many, many else. So apparently, knowing how to describe snow allows them to pay attention to the cues of nature, or what decision they need to make when they experience a certain type of snow. So to them, having ways to describe snow is important because snow is part of their lives. It's all around them. And now you must be asking, Edwin, today, right, what are Eskimos and snow is going to do with your message? Well, I will be talking about love. And now here's my thought. If Eskimos have 50 odd ways to describe snow because it is important to them, what more is it for us being a community of love, that we need to be well-versed in love? So the title of my message today is Love Better. Now, turn to your friends next to you, say, I love you. Okay, I see some of you cringing, right? So that's okay. Now, look at the same person again, right? And explain to them what you think you mean when you say, I love you. Wow. Okay, getting awkward. Like, I think, right? Stumbling, right? Don't know how to explain. Okay, so relax, that's perfectly normal. So you see, love is a universal concept, right? We probably understand the feeling of love. And most of us have no problem describing it. No, it's instinctual. We just know it. But in terms of expressing that love, it gets a little bit complicated. And that's because love is a highly complex and nuanced emotion. And it's perfectly normal if we find it difficult to verbalize it. So to make you feel better, you are not in this alone. So there is a video interview where people of different ages will ask this question, what is love? And I find it very, very funny because I think some of us will relate to some of their explanation based on our age group. Okay, so we're going to roll the video in 3, 2, 1.
What does the word love mean to you?
Wow. Ooh, love.
Love.
Love. Oh my goodness.
That means you love somebody. I think love is
Love is a way... Actually, I'm not really sure how to answer this question.
It's complicated. Love is a complicated thing.
Well, one of the definitions is that condition or state where the happiness of another is essential to one's own.
I think love is just a form of God.
Well, if you're talking family-wise, it means everything. But if you're talking like marriage, I mean, you can be single. I mean, that's kind of what I want to do.
Wow, that's deep.
Oh, you're asking the wrong age group, because the first thing I want to do is say love means never having to say you're sorry.
Love means never having to say you're sorry. But I don't believe that at all, because I feel like you say you're sorry a lot.
Love to me is the greatest marketing campaign ever invented.
Love for me is being 100% vulnerable and all the way in,
You can love yourself first. Because once you learn how to love yourself, you can love anything in this world.
Someone that loves you because you're you.
Love means accepting people the way they are.
It has to be a two-way street. It can't just be, I'm accepting you, you gotta accept me too.
I think that it's being able to do something for somebody else that maybe you wouldn't normally do or maybe you wouldn't want to do, but you do it anyway because it's something that they want to do.
Even if you hate it so much, you just would do anything because you want to be with them.
Love is a powerful thing.
And it makes you do the things you never thought you could do. And I think it makes life worth living.
Everything else becomes nothing. Okay, all that matters is that the whole two hearts, to expand to that infinity.
It means, in a funny way, freedom, because you're free to feel so many feelings so deeply.
Love to me is something you do on a day-to-day basis. And so you can hold affection and you can hold nostalgia, but I think love is active.
I always say I'd rather love someone than be in love with someone, because being in love with someone implies that you can fall out of it.
If you're really close to your family, I consider that love, right? So any other person, friend or family or love interest, if you see them as your family, then that's love.
Okay, so a lot of different meanings, and I'm sure you also can't explain it in one line, right? So it's interesting to see that love can be described in so many different ways. But ultimately, you can sense that despite whatever definition of love is to them, love carries a weight in their lives. And you can feel that it is important to them. So Barbara Fredrickson, one of the most cited scholars in psychology today, published a book called Love 2.0. So in her research, she found that love is the momentary upwelling of three interwoven events. It means three things happening at once. Number one, a sharing of one or more positive emotions between you and another. Number two, a synchrony between yours and the other person's biochemistries and behaviors. And number three, a reflected motive to invest in each other's well-being that brings mutual care. So over the entire EQ series, CJ shared with us a lot of materials that have got to do with the first 2 points, which I highly recommend for you to listen it if you haven't, or re-listen it because it's that good. But today, I would like to focus on the third event, which is love is a reflected motive to invest in each other's well-being that brings mutual care. And that has got to do with actions of love, right? Love in action. So 3 parts to this: love is a reflected motive, invest in each other's well-being, and mutual care. And I'm going to touch on each of these parts and how we can use it to love better. So let's start with the first. Love is a reflected motive. And this has got to do with the way you think and process love. So what is a reflected motive? Simply put, reflected means that we have gone through a process of reflection or evaluation. Motive is our desire to do something. It is also the root word for motivation. So if you marry these two words together, love in this context is a desire to do something after a process of reflection and evaluation. Too cheap? Simpler terms is to be thoughtful. So that's my first point today, love thoughtfully. So Hebrews 10, verse 24 in the CB version, And it says, and let us consider each other carefully, or Amplified Version, it says thoughtfully, for the purpose of sparking love and good deeds. Philippians 1:9 in the Message Version, it says, so this is my prayer, that your love will flourish and that you will not only love much, but well. Learn to love appropriately. You need to use your head and test your feelings so that your love is sincere and intelligent, not sentimental gush. Oh, change the way that you think about love, right? So you see, the way we think can change the way we love. If we can think better, we can love better. So when we grow up, we experience love as mostly as an emotion, right? Love is this passion inside of you. It's like this burning impulse in your heart that makes you want to do something for someone. And the media has a certain way of portraying that love, right? K-drama love, like everything in slow-mo. Or a romantic or erotic love, or love at first sight, everything seems very impulsive, right? And for some of us, that becomes our only version of love. We can only love when we feel an urge for it. We need stimulus. Now, it is raw, it is impulsive and reactive. Now, there's nothing wrong with that. Love should be passionate. Now, it is an emotion after all. Now, it should stir up something in your heart. It should make you feel like you want to do something for someone. But love should also be rational. It is well thought of. We think about how we can love others in a way that they can best receive it. We think about how to express our love appropriately. And this does not just apply to romantic relationships, it applies to all relationships. So how can we be more thoughtful? So we got to first understand how our brain processes feelings and makes rational decisions. So Daniel Kahneman, an Israeli-American psychologist and economist, published another book, right, which many of you might have heard of, called Thinking Fast and Slow. So in his book, Daniel Kahneman suggests that every human being has two modes of thoughts, or we can call it operating systems. And he calls them System 1 and System 2. Okay, not a very creative way, but it gets the point across. So System 1 is what he calls fast thinking. And it operates automatically and quickly with little or no effort and no sense of voluntary control. So for example, you can see the next picture here. You see a woman's face, her mouth is wide open and she's about to shout, her eyebrows are frowned. It doesn't take you 30 seconds to figure out that she's angry, right? That's an instance of fast thinking, and that's System 1. That's where most of our judgment comes from. Now, the interesting thing is that System 1 operates in the limbic system of our brain, which is often used to process emotions and memories. And it also operates in the same mesolimbic pathway, which is responsible for the release of dopamine. So given that human beings tend to seek instant gratification, dopamine plays a key role in thinking fast. It's like how we feel this sudden surge of energy when we drink coffee, right? Like that same pathway. So simply put, System 1 is which we process and make decisions instinctively, or what we call intuitions. And what he found is that System 1 makes up 98% of most of our thinking, everyday life. Now, System 2, this unfamiliar system, on the other hand, is what he calls slow thinking. Doesn't mean you are slow, it's just a way of thinking that is slower. And it allocates attention to the effortful mental activities that demand it, including complex computations. So the operations of System 2 are often associated with the subjective experience of agency, of choice, and concentration. Easier. For example, you see this problem on the screen, 17 times 24. Some of you give up already. Okay, because that's Clement has already did it before the gathering. Okay, that's System 2, not System 1. Perceived System 1. So you immediately know it's a multiplication problem and you can solve it, with pen and paper, calculator, or if you're Jingxiang, it's without. But it takes time. And this is the case of slow thinking. This is System 2. So System 2 operates at the frontal and parietal cortex, which is often linked to the analytical system of decision making. Therefore, this region is more associated with our complex reasoning and higher order slow thinking. So, simply put, System 2 is where we process and make decisions rationally. And of course, System 2, as it suggests, does 2% of all our thinking. Now, let's do a fun experiment, okay, in case like you're like, oh, what's this System 1, System 2? Okay, so to test your System 1 and 2 thinking. So, question on the screen. Okay, let me read it out. On an abandoned field, there is a patch of dandelions. Every day, the patch doubles in size. If it takes 48 days for the patch to cover the entire field, how long would it take for the patch to cover half of the field? Okay, you got to be honest with me, okay? You don't like, oh, now I start thinking the other way. So, okay, if you use System 1 thinking, you go for the fastest, easiest hunch. You may think, easy or what? Half field, 48 days, answer is 24, right? Okay, that's not the answer. Okay, who has 24 at first? Just at first intuition. Oh, Clement. Okay, you are the only normal human being here. Now, System 2 thinking, you slow down the thinking and apply logic. If the patch of dandelions doubles each day, then the moment the field reaches 50% coverage, it will just take one more day to reach 100%. So it should cover at 47, not 24. But there's so many O's. So y'all were go back. Who got 24 as answer? Ah, okay, more people. Okay, cool. Okay. Okay, so now the purpose of his research isn't to pinpoint which system is better, but to create an awareness and understanding of how human beings think. And these two systems work hand in hand, is in tandem, and often help each other in different situations. So System 1 generates ideas for System 2, right? Intuitions, impressions, and feelings. And it processes situations and usually is of good intention, of course. And since our initial reactions are generally appropriate, so we receive it good. However, System 1 is biased and prone to making systematic errors. Right? We could be wrong in our judgment. So the task of System 2, which is in charge of self-control, is to overcome the impulses of System 1. Right? Immediately go 24. Wait. That doesn't seem right. All right? So similarly, when it comes to love, human beings, we naturally process and make decisions using System 1. Right? Easy, right? I feel love, therefore I love. But if we want to be more thoughtful in the way we love, then we got to start engaging our System 2. So a tool to help you to start practicing engaging your System 2 is this very simple: pause, reflect, engage. It is taking that moment to disrupt your System 1 thinking, to slow down and think about how we can love better. So, for example, you notice your best friend who walked into church today, they had a bad week, right, from school or from work. Or maybe they had a slight argument with their friend or boss. So now, instead of jumping to conclusions thinking that you know the best way to cheer them up, and you surprise them and encourage them, hey, cheer up, woo, you can do this, as a way of expressing your love for them, again, nothing wrong here, the intention is good. But if you want to love better, you've got to first pause. Like, before you jump into it, wait a minute. Disrupt that thought that you think you already know what you want to do. Take a moment to reflect on what you observe and seek to understand the situation. Ask yourself, what is my friend going through right now? Instead of doing this and that, how can I find a way to love them better? What is it that they need right now? Perhaps they just need a listening ear. Perhaps they don't want to talk about it and just want to do something fun together. Or perhaps they just need good food to treat themselves. So now, caveat here, right? Reflection is not overthinking. The intention is to slow down. And after you thought it through, engage. Ask them, hey, what do you need? What do you want to do? And our way to express our love for them is to do what they want to do and to meet their needs. Now, it is important that reflect comes before engage. That's because thoughtfulness is about us putting in the work first. So for some of us, right, you might think, isn't it easier to engage first? Just like ask them what they want and we just do it lah. Like, why you still need to think before you ask? And then ask already, still need to do something different, right? Now, if you think about it, that's not being thoughtful, right? We're just demanding our friends to give more in that situation. Have you ever been around with people like that? Their intentions are good, but when they aren't thoughtful, the person who is supposed to be the recipient of love ends up attending to you instead of the other way around. So you see, the purpose of reflection is to slow down and to seek to understand what the person is going through, and that is essentially empathy. And only when we do some work of reflection, then can we make ourselves available in time, in our emotions, to be present when we engage our friends. So if we want to love better, we got to start becoming more thoughtful. Simple? So that's the first part. Love is a reflected motive. The second part is to invest in each other's well-being. And I'm going to talk about giving. So point number 2 is if we want to love better, we got to give willingly. So love and giving is these very interesting relationships, and it always come hand in hand. And we have this saying in TiVo, you can give without loving, but you can never love without giving, right? Giving with the intention of love is the act of love. And the quality of a giving reflects the quality of love. So if we want to love better, we got to give better. So John 15:12 to 13, the CB version, it says, "This is my commandment." This is Jesus speaking. "Love each other just as I have loved you. No one has greater love than to give up one's life for one's friends." Now, the word love in its original text is a Greek word called agapao. Okay, it's a verb form of the word agape. This one, more of us are familiar with it, right? And it's often referred to as kind of like a divine love or the highest form of love. The kind of love that makes you do something out of the world for another person. Now, John 3:16 is the one that everybody knows. It says, "God so loved," this word here is agapao, "the world that He gave His only Son, so that everyone who believes in Him won't perish but will have eternal life." You see, God didn't have to do this, but God loved us so much that He made an incredible sacrifice for us. And that is the kind of love God is actually calling us to emulate, agapao. A kind of love that moves us to be willing to give up one's life for one's friends. So now, take a moment, look at the friends beside you, and how many of you are willing to give up your life for them? Okay, you don't need to answer, okay? tough question, you know. But this is the standard of love that God called us to. And it is a good standard to work towards. So I'm going to break it down in giving into 3 levels, and I hope that it will help you better assess the way you give. And I'll be illustrating to you using this graph. Okay, pardon the crayon coloring. This is the best I can do on my iPad. Okay. So I'm going to get a little bit geeky here, right? So just stick with me. I promise you'll get something out of this. Okay, so I'm going to orientate you with the graph first so that you know what you're actually looking at. So when we give, it usually involves giver, recipient, right? I'm giving my love for you. And the intention of giving involves meeting a need. And we, as the person who love, have the means to give. And we have the resources. So that will be our X and Y axis, right? Needs and means. And our needs usually come with expectations, right? Hence, we can add a line across. If you see this 45 degrees line, it's called expectation. So for example, I need only X. I expect only X if you say you are giving me X, right? That's to meet a need there. Okay, equal, so 1:1. If your need is here, your means is there. It's directly proportional. So next, we add a curved line that represents our actual giving. If you can see it here, is this one, right? This curved line. Usually that's the case, okay? So this is an assumption that everyone does the same, right? The lesser the need, the more inclined that we will give more, right? And it goes faster and faster. And of course, everyone, we have a limit to our giving. We cannot give more than what we don't have, right? That's the line on top. That's the max of our means. So, if we give time, we only have 24 hours a day. I can't give you 25 hours. If we give, we can if you go past the day. If we give money or possessions, we can only give what we have on our bank account, right? If we give energy, we can only give that much before we say, hey, okay, I need to rest, I need to charge myself first. So, now all these things are set in stone. I'm going to introduce you to 3 levels of giving, as stated here. So the first level is spontaneous giving, which is giving within our means, okay? Giving within our means and within most expectations. Level 2 is generous giving. Giving is still within our means, but exceeding most expectations. And lastly, level 3 is giving outside our means and exceeding most expectations. So I'm going to go into each of them, but I'm just going to give you a caveat first, okay? So this framework, when I was doing it, I was thinking like, we need to learn how to use it properly. It is used to create awareness of the way that you give so that you can make your own decision that applies to your situation. It should be by no means to be used to make moral judgments about yourself or others. And in fact, in life, we practice all three levels. Now, sometimes we feel challenged to give more. And not all the times we are called to give sacrificially. And especially in a community setting, giving is a highly complex thing. And the key to this is to approach with an open heart. Okay, so we good? So we're going to jump into it. So level 1, spontaneous, which is to give within our means and within most expectations. So 1 John 3:17 in the Message version, and it says, if you see some brother or sister in need and have the means to do something about it, but turn the cold shoulder and do nothing, what happens to God's love? It disappears. And you made it disappear. It's very straightforward. So everything in this level, spontaneous giving, this is like the basic level of giving. It is something comfortable. You don't need to even think twice about it, right? And this is the most ideal way of giving in this level, right, is not within, I would say, if you could go back to the graph itself, let me just show you where is it. It's not within this area, okay? The most ideal way is when you actually give on this line. I mean, if you give below what is expected, you're not meeting a need, actually. Or unless you're giving it together and then everyone plays their part, right? So, now, moving on, level 2, which is the green area there, generous, okay, generous level. So, which is to give within our means, right? We still can afford to give that, but it exceeds the expectation. Or that's actually what the definition of generous means, to give above what is expected. So many people often misidentify generosity as sacrifice. Wow, this person gives more than what is needed. This person is truly sacrificing. By this definition, no, okay? So generosity is about giving still within your means. I can afford to give it. I give you my all, and you don't expect it. So Mark 10, it says, in this story here, it's very interesting. So as Jesus continued down the road, a man ran up, knelt before him and asked, "Good teacher, what must I do to obtain eternal life?" Jesus replied, "Why do you call me good? No one is good except the one God." And he says, "You know the commandments, don't commit murder, don't commit adultery, don't steal, don't give false testimony, don't cheat, honor your father and mother." "Teacher," he responded, "I've kept all these things since I was a boy." Verse 21, Jesus looked at him carefully and loved him. He said, "You are lacking one thing. Go sell what you own and give the money to the poor. Then you will have treasure in heaven. And come, follow me." But the man was dismayed at this statement and he went away saddened because he had many possessions. Now, there's a lot of things going on here, but the point I'm trying to make is that Jesus was challenging this rich young ruler to be generous. Like in the premise of eternal life, Jesus is asking him to do something more than just what is expected of the commandments, to give all he owned to the poor. So you see, giving generously will cost you more, right? And especially if you want to exceed an expectation or to meet a higher need. And it kind of pushes the boundaries of your comfort zone, but it is still within your means. So an example of someone who gives generously is Zihan. Yeah. So even back in Kallang days, right, I'm going to throw back far away. So whenever it is offering time, he always feels challenged to be generous. And you always hear these stories, even if like in MT or so, that he will always end up emptying his wallet. Now, if you think about it, did anyone tell Zihan to empty his wallet specifically? No. Was it expected that he empties his wallet? No. But Zihan chose to be generous, to give everything he can because of his conviction and his love for God and the community. And what happens now is that today he is still generous. He's always the first few people to volunteer to give and is one of our biggest givers. So another powerful story about generosity I want to share is about Ming Qian. Yes, so another major throwback to 2011. So I think most of you are born then, right? In 2011, there was a terrible earthquake off the coast of Sendai, Japan, which resulted in the tsunami that took really many lives and destroyed many homes in the area. So in TiVo, we decided to send teams over for relief work. However, all of us here, we were young. Yes, we were young back then. And going for a trip like this, requires a lot of money. So Helena was very interested in being a part of the relief team, but back then she was still studying. However, Ming Qian heard about the situation and decided to give a sum of money to fund Helena on the trip. Now the thing is, Ming Qian herself had only started working at the time. She doesn't have a lot to offer, but she gave out of generosity to love and support her friend. And of course, Helena was very touched by it. So let's give all these people a big hand. So now, if you see, let's go back to the graph again, right? If you see the area of giving that is above the expectation line, okay, let me just point to you in case you miss it. This area looks like a curve, like a banana, okay? I've called it the holistic giving. This, to me, is where I feel we should ideally operate most of the time. This is where we are generous in our giving, and yet we are not over-giving for a situation where the need required is very low. This is a space where we give to take care of the needs of others, but also make sure that we have enough in reserve in the tank to be generous for other situations. Now, again, I explained just now that we all have a limit of how much you can give, realistically give. We cannot give beyond what you can offer. However, if we want to progress further, then we enter level 3, which is sacrificial, right? Everything in red above. So sacrificial, it means giving outside our means and exceeding most expectations, okay? So to give more than what you can is often at the expense of something else in your life. We have to sacrifice something in our lives so that we can have the means to give more. So Mark 12:41, this is another passage that everyone's familiar with. It says, Jesus sat across from the collection box for the temple treasury and observed how the crowd gave their money. Many rich people were throwing in lots of money, and one poor widow came forward and put in 2 small copper coins worth a penny. Jesus called his disciples to him and said, I assure you that this poor widow has put in more than everyone who's been putting money in the treasury. And all of them are giving out of their spare change, but she, from her hopeless poverty, has given everything she had, even what she needed to live on. Now, let me give you some context here a little bit, okay? In the patriarchal world of Jesus' time, women could not speak for themselves, and they were dependent upon the care and protection of male relatives. Unfortunate, right? No, and the male counterparts had the legal authority to speak on their behalf. So an adult woman's social status and security were determined by her roles, right? I'm the wife, or as a mother, or as a mistress of a household. Her husband was responsible for supporting her financially and representing her in all matters of public concern. So consequently, the death of a husband meant not only personal grief, but also radical social upheaval and economic uncertainty. So that 2 copper coins is worth more than just that 2 copper coins. It's all that what the poor widow had left. Her livelihood was literally depending on that 2 coins. It was giving something that cost her something or even everything. So personally, sacrificial giving is love expressed at the highest level because you're willing to give more than what is required. You're willing to give and sacrifice more something in your life. And you know something is very important and loved when we start to sacrifice for it. So a powerful person I want to share with you is CJ. Yay! So for many of you who do not know or you just are new to the community, for the first 7 years of building church, CJ took no full-time pay at all. And the first 3 years was like totally zero pay. And then the next 4 years it was as low as $350 a month, which is significantly lower than what her peers were earning back then, just only enough to get by. But yet, for almost every RF, renovation fund in church, CJ is always one of the biggest givers. CJ even empties her bank accounts a few times just so that she can give God a radical sacrifice to build this community. Amazing, right? Let's give CJ a round of applause. Okay, so my point here is, there is no best way to give. I'm not calling you to everyone here, give sacrificially. No, everyone sacrifice your life. I don't want you to take this as a reference point to be calculative in the way you give. The purpose of sharing this with you is so that you can assess your giving and think through how can you love better. Right? So, on the graph, the need line is there. You got to ask yourself, will I meet the need? Am I willing to be generous, or am I willing to sacrifice? The decision is yours. And this brings me to my main point for this section, right? Loving better is about our willingness to give. Willingness is what allows us to move freely along the graph, along the vertical line. So 2 Corinthians 8, verse 12, it says, a gift is appreciated because of what a person can afford, not because of what that person can't afford, if it's apparent that it's done willingly. So willingness, as defined by the dictionary, is the quality or state of being prepared to do something, readiness. So we got to do some internal work by asking ourselves these questions every time we get the opportunity to love by giving. Ask yourself, number one, does this gift of love meet the needs of my friends? Basic. And then when you're approaching it, ask yourself, am I willing to give generously above just meeting the needs alone? And the final question you ask yourself, am I willing to give sacrificially if needed too? So if the answer is yes to all, you're good to go. And if the answer is no to one of them, then you should evaluate how you can give better at each level. Cool. So finally, to the last point of Barbara Fredrickson's event of love, which is bring mutual care. So this is to say, in the context of community, we are all givers and recipients of love, right? There is reciprocity. Or for the love of cringe, right? Like what Bunny the Purple Dinosaur once said, I love you, you love me, we're a happy family. Which brings me to my third point, is becoming us. So human beings, we are just hardwired for connection since the beginning of time. We all have a need for belonging, to be a part of something bigger than ourselves, to connect with someone or a group of people so that we can love and feel loved. Colossians 3:14 in the NLT version, it says, above all, clothe yourself with love, which binds us all together in perfect harmony. So at the end of the day, love is about building connections. It brings people together. And what Barbara Fredrickson concludes in her research is this, like if she were to sum up love into one line. Love is the micro moment of warmth and connection that you share with another living being. As simple as that. So the more we love, the stronger and deeper the connection. And it is in this connection that we turn from the individual me, right? It's just, I'm an individual, to the together we. And we begin to share life together. We begin to care for each other, right? What concerns you right now concerns me, vice versa. And we begin to look after each other. So turn to your friend beside you, say, I care for you. Okay, that's a little bit more easier to say, right? So now, a type of animal that exemplifies this is the dolphin. Very cute. I was like, there's a lot of cute pictures online for dolphins. So dolphins are very, very sociable creatures, and they live together in pods or in small groups. So pod life provides individuals with the companionship which is important to them, and the pod members look after one another and cooperate to catch food, to raise their young, and defend each other from predators. They also play together, have fun, right? So they form close, tight-knitted bond with other dolphins since young. So research was done in Australia to study the relationship between dolphins and whether they will actually pay attention to the needs of other dolphins from a different pod. Tricky. So while the dolphins are traveling together but in separate pods, researchers played recordings of individual whistles. So it's like a signal, right? And it sounds that identify a dolphin like a name. It's like calling someone like Clement, right? In the middle pod, in the middle of it. And it discovered that while the whistle came from the middle pod, dolphins from the neighboring pods, from the front and from the back, immediately turn towards it. And sometimes when they go towards it, they will whistle back as well, as a form of checking in if everything's okay. And once they've communicated, nothing's wrong, everyone's cool, I don't know where the sound is coming from, they go back to their own pods. And the interesting thing is, this doesn't happen only once, but it happened multiple times, even when the sound was played from a different pod. So you see, dolphins display care for each other within their community. And one more incident in June 2008, this is very, very touching. A group of researchers were following a group of about 400 dolphins off the coast of Japan. And in the late morning, they noticed about 12 dolphins were swimming very, very close to each other. And they found out that one female dolphin was in difficulty. And it was like wriggling and tipping from side to side and sometimes turning upside down. And it happens to be that its pectoral flippers seems to be paralyzed. It was sick. And what the other dolphins were doing, it was crowding it and often diving beneath it and supporting it from below. And after about 30 minutes, the dolphins formed an impromptu raft, like a boat, for their friend. And they swam side by side with the injured dolphin on their backs. And by keeping the injured dolphin above the water, they may have helped it to breathe to avoid drowning. But of course, unfortunately, after a few minutes, because the dolphin was sick, the injured dolphin dropped into a vertical position and stopped breathing. But the touching point is that even when the dolphin sunk to the bottom of the ocean, the rest of the dolphins stayed with it and continued touching its body until it sank out of sight as a sign of mourning. So you see, like the dolphins, the connection they have for each other motivates them to care and help each other. And what more can we learn from them in how to love and care for each other here? You got to ask yourself, when you see a friend struggling, how can you help? How can you care? So the last passage for today in 1 Corinthians 12, verse 25, second last passage, it says, the way God designed our bodies is a model of understanding our lives together as a church. Every part dependent on every other part. The parts we mention and the parts we don't. The parts we see and the parts we don't. If one part hurts, every other part is involved in the hurt and in the healing. If one part flourishes, every other part enters into the exuberance. So likewise, in TiVo, we are a community of deep, meaningful connections. When we say we love each other here, it means that we are committed to this connection. And that should result in a form of mutual love and care. That what concerns you now concerns me as well. It becomes our concerns. Love brings us together and allows us to share our lives. And we create opportunities to help each other who is in need. And it gives us reason to celebrate each other as well. And that's why we believe in TiVo, so others, or bracket we, can have better. So you see, if love, as defined by Barbara Fredrickson, is described as the micro moment of warmth and connection that you share with another living being, then the mission of love is about becoming us. So I know we have been talking a lot about this since Easter, right? From me to we, from having a unified purpose as we come together. The way we can do it is to love better. Don't just talk about it. Don't just throw out meaningless I love you. But practice it. Learn to be better at loving people. Be thoughtful. Be willing to give and sacrifice. So the final verse to close this, John 13, 34, 35. This is Jesus speaking. I give you a new commandment, love each other, just as I have loved you. So you must also love each other. And this is how everyone will know that you are my disciples, when you love each other. Amen. So I know this is a heavy topic. How many ways can we describe love still, to get it, like I need to love. But I'm pretty sure all of us here, we have the capabilities to love. But will we today make a commitment to love better? I also wish I had more time to dive deeper into application. But the purpose of my sharing is to get you to think deeper about how to love better. And the actual work starts right after this, into your day-to-day interactions with each other. In a moment after gathering end, do you sit down there, use your phone, check Instagram? Or do you take your time to turn to your friend and say how was your week? I haven't catch up with you for very long. I was thinking about you the whole week, and then, is there anything that is good, or can I do anything for you? So, if there's anything for every one of us here to take away, it's just these 3 points: to be thoughtful, to give willingly, and to become us.